Okay, Micro Gentle Lady unpacking. So we've got our instructions, which downloaded off the internet and printed. We have 2 sheets of the plans. So it's the wings, fuselage, gives us some idea. At the moment these are being rolled up, so I'm just going to go through a quick way of getting these nice and flat. So we've got those there, and then as ever with Angel Wing Designs, everything's always beautifully packed. Now, little note of caution, on the outside is a small accessory pack with a few bits and pieces and a couple of wires. Put them away safely, and there we go. So now you've got to be very careful, because these have all been superbly laser cut, and some of this stuff's just going to fall straight out of this balsa. So I'm just going to get every bit out, and you'll see in this it literally as is I've opened it. There's some sheeting there, and ooh, look at that, the fuselage has dropped out already. Let me just put that to one side. Don't throw the brown paper away, I've got a plan for that. Right, there you go, out of the pack, that's everything that's in the kit. So the first thing I'm going to do is, as always, I'm going to read the instructions, and then I'm going to go through and have a look at setting these plans up. So the first thing we're going to build is the fuselage. There we go, the plans where they've been rolled up, I just want to get them nice and flat. Now, I've used a brown paper that has come in their packaging underneath. I'm turning it over so we're not actually ironing onto the ink. I've got some kitchen roll. This is a modelling iron. You can just use a normal domestic iron. I'd start off with it on a fairly low temperature and then slowly work up. You don't want to go too hard, because I've got no idea whether, if it was too hot, whether you take the print off. But all I'm doing is I'm just giving that a quick wipe over, and that, as you can see, is getting rid of all the creases. We actually don't need to use the fuselage, can be built off the plan, but the wing is definitely built on the plan. So quite important to be able to get the this plan of the wing nice and flat and wrinkle free. There we go. Okay, so the first step is let's build the fuselage. Now the fuselage doesn't need to be built on the plan, and we are going to be using thin super glue, and we are going to need, for this bit of the build, this fuselage side, that fuselage side, and we're going to need Formula 1, F1, F2 and F3. Okay, as you can see, this is so superbly laser cut that some of this stuff is just going to fall out as it is. Now what you want to do is, don't assume that everything's going to come out. So I've got a very sharp knife, and very carefully I'm just going to work round to make sure that nothing else is stuck. And remember, got a little bit there, so don't get chucking any, just keep your scrap to one side. Now here we've got some little tip here we've got some little former sides. What we want to do is just make sure that we actually release those properly by just making sure that we've gone round with the knife like so. Another important thing with these here let me show you. Okay, so these little formers, just make sure that you go round with your very sharp knife, because there will be some little tags that have left over from the laser cutting. And you can see where I've just picked that one out. Look, that's popped out beautifully. Now get all of those out very, very gently. Don't be tempted to be pushing them out too early. Just, it's worth going round, just releasing these little tags. You'll be able to see them quite easily on here. There you go, look at that. Couple of little tips right at the start. This F2, can you see it's got those little circles and holes in it? Now when we lift that up, they come out and they are to be used later, so don't throw those away. One other little thing, this is where you get your little finest emery board out. And let me just show you. Can you see where the laser finishes? Just on here we've got some little tags. So very gently, I'm just going to get my emery board and I'm just going to see, I'm actually holding the balsa structure close. What you don't want to do is don't hold it here and then be doing any sanding, because you'll just break it. So always try and support it just like that, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just giving that, just to make sure there's none of the little bits to where the laser finishes. And see, there you go, there's a little bit just there, and then all I'm going to do is support it with my hand. There you go. Now, we don't have to, but there's a little bit just on the inside there. Right, so one other last thing, you'll notice that this fuselage side has a little slit in it. So my advice is that's got to be used, that's important because that's where the controls are going to run through. My advice is, while you remember, just gently, I'm just going to pencil an R on the side, because that indicates that this has to be the right side of the fuselage. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do something called a dry fit. So we're going to put all of these together now, all these bits together, to get it nice and in a nice shape, and then what we're going to do is we're going to glue it all together. Slit at the bottom. This is F3 with the angles, they're going at the top, so this goes in here like so. If for any reason it doesn't go, stop and have a little look. It might be that some of the little edges need just a gentle sanding, but I don't think so. So that's F3. F2 again with the angles. You'll know also that you've got it in the right way, because these little notches here go at the bottom, because that's to take the fuselage floor. So there you go. That's F3, F2. And then the idea is we just sit that on there like so. We then make sure that we've got F2 is round the right way. And we are just going to sit that on there like so. There you go. And then we're going to roll that over. Now, okay, so I've put a little bit of, you can just use normal household tape. I'll put a little bit of white tape on there. This is sacrificial in case any of the glue leaks through. So I have a little bit of masking tape, just pulling the back together, and then a little bit of one of the elastic bands out of the kit. Now I've got to be honest with you, be very careful. I broke mine just here pulling it together. So what we're going to do is that's where this comes in use, very useful. I'm now just going to drop some glue down inside here, all the way up and down this joint. And my advice is I would just do a couple of little spots on all four corners, this side, that side, that side, that side, and the front former. Let it all dry, and then when you've done that, with this little tool if you can, or you can just use the normal super glue, but just be very careful. What you want to do is just run a little extra fillet along there, just to make sure that you've got an extra nice bit of glue strength. So the next thing we're going to need is this. This is your fuselage side. I'm just going to make sure that I've got any of the little, just feel around and make sure I've got any of the laser tags are removed. I've removed the two centre sections, and the idea is this is then going to fit on here like so, being gentle to make sure we don't force it on, and if any there we go, like so. And then what we're going to do, get that in place, and then I'm just going to get that on there like so. Make sure that the fuselage is all nice and square, and then I'm going to go round again. My advice is just go round a couple of little tacks, get it all nice and square. Make sure you've not introduced any warps into the fuselage, and then when you're happy, then you can run a bigger fillet all the way round. And when I say run a bigger fillet, just get a little bit of super glue and run all the way along that joint. But just make sure that you don't introduce a twist. Okay, so I've put the bottom sheeting on, and I am just going to put that to one side, because when we turn the page, the next thing is, if you remember, I said to you there was two little round holes stuck in the middle of the former F2, and I told you not to chuck it away. Now's the time we need to use them. Okay, so the instructions say that we need to, you get this out of your little accessory pack. This is the centre of F2, and we want those two little holes in the centre, and the instructions suggest that we cut these to 1/2 inch. Well, that's about 12.7 millimeters, so I think if we go to 12 millimeter, well, let's go for 13 millimeters, and then we'll be absolutely fine. So we need to cut two of these to 13 millimeters. Right, okay, so this is the little bit that we had out of Former 2. Now, a couple of little top tips I'm going to give you here to save you some grief. I think you'll find that there's only a small little tag there which you just push in and they drop out. Now, what we've got to do is we've got to be cutting this to 2 bits of 13 mil, and they've got to be inserted into here. Now, I'd like to give you some help doing this. Now, let me just show you something. That's actually now got its balsa core removed. The safest way to do that is you can either do it with a knife, or in your accessory pack you've got this wire, and all I did was I just got a little bit, just got one of the wires and poked that through, and a little bit of the hole, a little plug pops straight out. Now the other thing is that we've got to be careful when we're cutting this. Now let me show you. That's marked to 13 mil, and what you really want to do is put a finger either side of where you're going to cut. You can slowly walk round like so, like moving the rod round, or get it thinner and thinner, and it removes like so. There's one technique. The other thing I would suggest is that when you're actually doing it and you're going to cut through, if you've got a finger on either side, it stops one of these firing off and you lose it. One last little tip. We've now got to feed these into here without breaking them. I would suggest is if you get your little nail file and just very, very gently, I'm just going to remove the edge, like so, not gone mad, and that then pops on there, like so. Don't force it, you might have to sand it just a little bit more. Right, okay, so this is how these are for the elastic bands to hold the wing on. So basically you can see there I've got the balsa ring, fitted it through, and then this goes the other side, and likewise. Now my advice is I would just get a little bit of super glue first just to fix it in place, let it dry, and then I would soak that a couple of times with some super glue. The other nice thing, what I've actually done is I've just run a little bit of super glue here and here, not on this top ridge, but I've done that just to strengthen so the super glue soaked in has helped to strengthen this former. So anyway, that's how it should be finished. Just remember to get them round in the right orientation. Right, so next bit, we're going to need the horizontal stabilizer, just the front bit. We're not gluing this at the moment. This is to help us find the position, and we're looking for this bit of sheeting that's got this little slit in it. Now, as before, just go around and make sure that you've got no little bits of balsa sticking out. I'm going to put that on there like so. Notice the slit is on the left hand side. Now I'm going to offer up the tailplane, but it needs to be hanging over the end of the plane by about 2 or 3 mil. Now let me show you what I mean. So in other words, what you need is it hanging off, just off the end there, because if we go too tight there, it means if the fuselage is hanging over the end, you won't be able to operate the elevator. So that's just going to go there like so. Now what that will do is that will give me the final position of the sheeting. So all I need to do now is to pop that on there like so, this on the left hand side, and what I'm cheekily going to do is I'm just going to mark that now with a pencil like so. I can remove that as I don't need that anymore, and that's now ready to go. This hole here is supposed to be here. This is how you add the bands to hold the wing on. So the next step is now gluing this in the marked position to the top of the fuselage, remembering to keep the slit on the left hand side. So done a little bit of top sheeting. Next things you're going to need this little hatch here out of your accessory pack. You're also going to need to cut all of this out. Don't chuck this middle bit away, because that's going to be your hatch. And you're also going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this little circle here, 6. This is going to be your nose block. So that's the next thing, is cut these all out, sand off any little laser tags to them, and then we'll put them all together. Okay, so the first stage is, this is the first bit we're going to glue. What you need to do is just make sure that you've got no offcuts of glue, and that you've got nothing overhanging. Now I've got just a bit of balsa overhanging that there. I'm just going to clean that up like so. Now what you must be careful of is don't crush that, because you'll break it. So the idea is that fits on there like so. When we're happy with the position, the idea is we're going to glue it on just like that. And what we want to do is make sure that you don't end up getting it sort of cockeyed, because this is where the canopy is going to sit in. So, right, okay, so I've glued this on nice and square. The next step is you want the largest of the 6 blocks, and you need to glue that on there. Now, my advice, we're going to start with that one like so, and then we're going to slowly keep gluing the blocks on. Now, the tip I would give you, use your super glue, but only glue in the middle there. If you have wedges and loads of super glue out here, you'll find it really difficult to sand. So try and do all your gluing in the middle of each block. Just slowly take your time and get them nice and neat. So that's the next project. Okay, that's all the 6 nose blocks put on, and that's what you're looking for. Just say, try and put a bit of super glue on the middles, not around the outside. It just makes life easier for when you come to sand it. So the next project is sorting out this hatch. Okay, so I've taken this ply former out of that sheet. Keep the middle because that's very important, so put that by safely. We also need, out of your accessory pack, the magnet, not the washer. So put the washer somewhere safe. So what's going to happen is, you'll notice with this, there's a line side and a plain side. So you need to have it. I've got a piece of sacrificial sellotape there. You could use a bit of plastic or a bit of greaseproof paper. And I'm going to grab this magnet. I'm going to make sure that the magnet is pushed all the way down and is super glued in place. Our magnet. So as I said, you want the line side facing down, and then the magnet has then been super glued around there. If you wanted to give it a little bit of extra strength, a little bit of a tip is you could run a little bit of super glue around here and then shake a little bit of baking powder around it. That will actually provide you a bit more strength, but just be careful because it will give off some very nasty vapours. Now, we're going to flip that over. So we've got this 2-line side which is now facing us, and the idea is we're going to pop this down inside here, just being careful, and then slide it all the way forward until the line disappears. And what will happen is, do some jiggling. There you go. Sorry, jiggling about. There you go, and that's how it should be. So we're going to glue this in. My advice is I would just hold it like so, and then drip a little bit of super glue down the inside. We don't want any super glue on the top here, because what we're hoping to do is obviously the other bit of the hatch is going to fit in there. So next step, we're going to glue that, and then we're going to go on to the final part of the hatch. Okay, so I have super glued this in with the magnet standing proud. Now, the only other last things we need to do for the fuselage, we're going to need this piece here. In this bit of ply, you have that square there. We need to cut that out because that's going to be a tongue. So the idea is that tongue is going to fit on here like so. And then we're going to pop this hole out, and this washer is going to be super glued into that position there so that it sits flush and will connect to that magnet there. Just wanted to quickly show you this. This is the tag glued in place, and if I turn it over, there is actually, you can just see that there's a little mark where half of the tag should run. And also, I have just cut round with the blade, and the laser cutting only goes down halfway. So the fantastic thing is now I can now drop the, if I can pick it up, that drops in there like so. That now fits flush. Ah, I breathed in too much super glue. Right, so that just needs super gluing. That means that the fuselage is done. Okay, so that's the gentle lady fuselage finished. Okay, that's the fuselage basically done. So I'm going to now leave the fuselage, put it to one side. I'm not going to show you how to do the sanding at the moment. The reason being is that we've got the wings, a little bit of sanding on the wings, we've got the tail plane and the rudder, and I'd like to do that as all one video. So put this aside, put the tops on your glue. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea, and I'll see you for episode 2, which will be the wing building.